Now let me hand over to the Defence Secretary and then to General Hockenhall to say a few words. Defence Secretary.
Thank you, Prime Minister. As the world becomes more dangerous, the Diego Garcia military base becomes more important. But I want to underline the urgency and uncertainty over the future control of this UK base. Within weeks, we faced new legal rulings which would weaken the UK's full operational sovereignty over this base. And within just a few years, this irreplaceable military and intelligence base would become inoperable. That's why we've taken action today. That's why the Prime Minister has signed this treaty today, securing this base for the next 99 years and beyond. Our allied nations are right behind us and behind this deal: the US, Australia, New Zealand, India, Canada. Others want to see this base closed. They want to see this deal collapse. China, Russia, Iran. The value of this deal is beyond doubt. Full control of Diego Garcia for the next 99 years and beyond. Full control and protection of the electromagnetic spectrum, that priceless intelligence, communications, sensors, radar. A strengthened buffer zone so we can control the seas and the skies immediately around Diego Garcia, and wider islands up to 100 miles, an effective veto over any developments or hostile activities. And with the base in jeopardy, no action was no option. And anyone who would argue to abandon this deal would abandon this base. So let me be clear. The British people and our British forces are safer today and into the future because of this deal. Thank you.
Thank you. General Hockenhall, can I turn to you?
Thank you, Prime Minister and Secretary of State. I think it's useful to add a military perspective here. The way we see this is very simple. Diego Garcia provides a vital capability to the armed forces, to our US allies, and for our shared contribution to global security. The geography offers immense and irreplaceable global reach, enabling us to pivot forces westward toward Africa and the Middle East, or eastward towards Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Added to that are the facilities on the base. A deep water port capable of hosting nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers, a runway capable of operating every type of military aircraft with the logistical support required for modern operations, and the satellite and communications infrastructure that the Prime Minister mentioned. It is a unique asset for Britain's defence and security. It gives us the ability to deploy a wide range of capabilities over a huge geography. Now, Diego Garcia proved its worth through the long years of counter-terrorism operations and proves its value today by supporting our ability to protect maritime trade. It will be of even greater strategic significance in the future. It helps keeps the United Kingdom safe and prosperous, and it allows us to work closely with our international partners. The use of Diego Garcia by US forces is a unique contribution to the military relationship between our two countries, and one that underlines the UK's commitment to burden sharing. Both our militaries will continue to benefit from our investment in these facilities for the years to come. Britain projects military power through such alliances and through assets like this base, which give us a global reach. I welcome the long-term certainty that this treaty brings. It will help the British Armed Forces in our efforts to support stability abroad and security at home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now take some questions from the media. I've got Jonathan Beale from the BBC first, please. Jonathan.
So first of all, if I could ask you, Prime Minister, two Chagos women went to the High Court to try to stop this today. They describe this as a very sad day. They say they do not want to hand their rights to Mauritius. What do you say to them? And then, isn't it time to level with the British taxpayer as to how much this is going to cost? I noticed you said it was going to cost the equivalent of the operational cost of an aircraft carrier. If you could actually spell that out, that would be helpful. And Defence Secretary, is this money that you're going to have to pay to lease back the base going to come out of the defence budget? And you're not going to get a single bullet, an extra soldier, or even a shell for Ukraine in return for that. So just what's the value of that? And then General Jim, if I can just ask, quote back to you from Jack Watling at RUSI. The UK has ceded strategic ground when it did not have to and has got nothing in return. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the Chagosian challenge, obviously the fact there was a challenge delayed the signing, but in a way was a good thing because a court has now heard the arguments for and against and come down conclusively in the High Court in favour of the government argument that was put forward this morning. So that challenge was made. That challenge has now been determined in our courts after legal argument, and that's the right way to determine it. Well, they made their case. I mean, there are different views, which I understand in different parts of the community, but the challenge that was put to us was made in court. The court heard the matter this morning on legal argument and came to a firm ruling in our favour. On the question of costs, the cost of this is an average per year cost of £100 million, £101 million a year is the average cost. The net overall cost is therefore £3.4 billion overall. That's over the 99 years. That is, as I mentioned a moment ago, the average 100 million per year is about the same or slightly less than the running cost of an aircraft carrier minus the aircraft. Now, given the significance of this facility, both the geography and the capability, you can see that as measured against an aircraft carrier running costs, that this is very good value for money. I should also say that it is very similar to arrangements made by other allies, the US and France, in relation to the bases that they lease and make arrangements for as well. So it's in keeping with those payments. Can I also, just before General Jim comes to this, just begin to answer the question you put to him, that did we have to do this? And the answer to that is there has already been an advisory opinion against the United Kingdom. All the advice, and nobody disputes this, is that should there be further legal proceedings, they're going to go against the United Kingdom. Before that happens, there will be interim measures taken, orders put in place. And even if the United Government took the view that it would not comply with its international obligations, which would be a big step, others will, other countries and other organisations. And that means, in terms spelt out, that within months, there would be interference with the capabilities at the base. Interference physically, but also interference with the sophisticated capabilities there, including spectrum as an example. And given the importance of the base for our safety and security, the safety and security for our allies, and the relationship that we have with the US, which is this an essential part of, no Prime Minister would allow that to happen. And my first duty as Prime Minister is to keep this country safe and secure. And no Prime Minister with that duty would allow this facility to be at risk, which it would be if we didn't sign this treaty. Thank you very much.
Can I add, the last government recognised the jeopardy of British control over Diego Garcia. That's why, as the Prime Minister said earlier, they conceded the principle that negotiations were necessary. They conducted 11 rounds of negotiation before the election. They failed to do a deal. We picked up the challenge, we picked up the negotiations, we toughened the terms and the protections and the control that Britain can exercise through this treaty, and within 10 months we've landed this deal that the Prime Minister has signed today. Now, on the money, this is an essential investment in our national security. It's less than 0.2% of the defence budget. It means that we can invest to strengthen our armed forces to face down the increasing threats that we face. And I just say to you, as a result of this deal today and in the years ahead, our armed forces are safer and they're stronger because of what we do on Diego Garcia.
And just before I pass to the General, can I just add on this question of why did you have to take this measure? It is worth reminding ourselves who is in favour of this treaty, this deal, and who's against it. In favour are all of our allies, the US, NATO, Five Eyes, India. Against it, Russia, China, Iran. And surprisingly, the leader of the opposition and Nigel Farage are in that column alongside Russia, China and Iran, rather than the column that has the UK and its allies in it. General Jim.
Johnny, thank you for the question. Now, I respect Jack Watling a lot, but I'm afraid on this case I'm going to have to disagree with him, as I believe he's wrong in his view. The value of Diego Garcia, I think, has been set out in the remarks that you've heard from all three speakers. And as the commander responsible for operations on Diego Garcia, any risk to that future operation, to me, would be an intolerable risk to take with our national security. And I think that that risk would manifest itself in our capability to operate being eroded in the very near future. I think it would be downgraded, it would be degraded significantly over time. And ultimately, we run the risk of losing control. Now, I think that risk would be intolerable. We must have long-term assurance and control. There is no other viable option to provide that assurance and control. And the irreplaceable, vital, and in many ways priceless asset that Diego Garcia is, must be guaranteed for us to be able to continue our operations. It's an essential element of our fighting power.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Catherine at GB News now. Catherine.
Catherine Forster, GB News. Prime Minister, what do you say to people who can't understand why you can find 100 million a year, billions over 99 years, but you can't find money to support people with disabilities? And you were a human rights lawyer. You're having to make this deal because of an international legal ruling. But the Chagosians that brought that case last night, that got that temporary injunction, feel that it breaches their human rights, and they're being treated just as shoddily as when the government booted them out of the Chagos Islands back in the 60s. What do you say to them?
Well, let me take all three parts of that question. In answer to your first question, the answer is the first duty of a Prime Minister is to keep the country safe and secure. And this base is vital in that respect. Its location, its physical use, and its capability, including the spectrum capability. That capability has already had huge impact around the globe in relation to combating and defeating our adversaries. It is vital to keep our armed forces safe in their operations. And it is, as I say, measured against other defence spend, it is year on year less than the cost of running an aircraft carrier minus the aircraft. And so it is really important that a Prime Minister doesn't shirk when it comes to national security. That is the number one duty and responsibility of any Prime Minister. It is a duty and responsibility that I take extremely seriously. In relation to legal rulings, true, there's already been an advisory opinion against us. And true it is, but for this treaty, there would certainly be further legal proceedings leading to binding judgments with interim orders on the way, which would be put in place in a number of months. Now, even if I stood here and said to you, the UK government would defy international law, which would be an extremely unusual position to take, others won't. Other countries and other organisations. And that means the risk of interference with the capability is there because of the action of others. And once that uncertainty comes into place, then that means the ability to control physically interference with the base, to control interference with things like spectrum, is immediately in place, which risks the capability of the base and puts it at risk within a matter of months. Nobody knowing the capability of this base and the importance to us and to the Americans, nobody who's looked at this in any detail would ever put that capability at risk. So yes, there's an international law question here, but my decision is actually based on our national security and the action of others, and faced with advice that that capability would be lost in a short period of time because of legal uncertainty, and knowing how important the capability is, that's not a decision that I or any responsible Prime Minister would ever take. And anybody who argues the contrary, in my view, is not fit to be Prime Minister. On the question of the Chagosians, look, there are different views amongst the community, but there was a legal challenge, and that argument had to be made. And in a way, I'm glad it's made, because now it has been aired, now it has been heard, now it has been argued in court. But what happened at 12:30 today is we got the judgment of the High Court, having heard the arguments, and that judgment was in favour of the government. Thank you. I've got David Shepherd from the FT.
Thank you, Prime Minister. David Shepherd from the Financial Times. Forgive me for asking a little bit more on the numbers around this. You've spoken of 101 million average over 99 years and a total cost of around 3.4 billion. A lot of the journalists here are asking, if you times 101 million, you get closer to 10 billion.
Yeah, can I deal with that straight away? That is the net cost, and the reason it's put in those terms is because that is how the government accounts for it, it's how the OBR counts the cost, and it's the way public sector projects are measured. In other words, what's the net cost today? And that is £3.4 billion. Obviously, over time, with inflation, then that is the net cost. But this isn't a way of presenting it for the purposes of this particular project. That is the way that governments present an account for public sector projects, is the way the OBR takes account of them when they're doing their assessments. And whether it's defence and, in fact, nuclear, that net cost is the cost that's used, which is why the figures are presented in that way. The 101 million is the average rolling over the period of the lease, which is 99 years, extendable by 40 extra years.
Having got the maths out of the way, can I ask my actual question? Given the vital importance of this base, not just to the UK, but to our allies, will we be asking allies like the United States to make additional contributions towards the payment for the base?
Yeah, let me deal with that directly, because this is a capability that is of vital use to both the UK and the US. And we obviously have, in relation to the US, a special relationship on defence and security and intelligence sharing. No two countries share intelligence in the way that the UK and the US does. In relation to this base, which we both make huge use of, we are paying under this treaty in the way I've just set out. The US is paying the running costs of the base, which are much greater than the costs that we are bearing. And therefore, there are different contributions to different aspects, if you like. We are paying under the treaty in the way that's set out. The US are paying the running costs of the base, which are far greater than the cost that we are bearing. Together, there is obviously that shared interest in the base, a vital capability for both of us. Thank you very much. And I've got Claire Sadler from BFBS.
Hi. What would you say to UK military personnel who are either stationed there or passing through there who might be concerned about the change in the dynamics in the region? And also, what guarantees are there that any military operations are going to be able to continue totally uninterrupted?
Well, the message would be, whether it's merchant personality or any other personnel, is you are safer now as a result of this treaty, because the uncertainty would have led to a potential compromise of this facility. So it is really important. In terms of military personnel, this base, this facility, has been used to protect our forces many times over. And by securing this treaty, this deal, it is now fully in place to protect them for 100 years, generations, with an option to add another 40 years to that. And as the Defence Secretary set out, not only the base, but the outer islands come under this treaty, and an ability to control what happens up to 100 nautical miles from the base. So in terms of the protection of our military, our armed forces, our service personnel, this ensures that they have the maximum protection wherever they may be, in just the same way as we had before. And that is amongst the reasons that was uppermost in my mind when I took the decision that I did, that this was vital for our national security. Thank you all very much. Thank you.